This week's episode, Doctor Strange conjures up some big dollars. Halo goes off the rails. And what's the future for Moon Knight? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do whatever it takes to go ahead and support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, or wherever can do, or whatever you can do to go ahead and check us out here at popculturecosmos.com, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, because we're the number one tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook, and we've got a ton of tabletop RPG games each and every week for you. Plus, if you could go ahead and support Humanican Media and everything that we do, including all the great stuff, again, at popculturecosmos.com, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is our own conjurer of sorcery in the multiverse. The Pop Culture Cosmos multiverse, of course. It's a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.com. Humanican Media with his great shows, Topicocalypse and the Super BS Gamescast that are on file. And you can go ahead and check out all the back episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Plus his amazing book, Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
What's up, and happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there. I know you'll be hearing this after Mother's Day, but
Absolutely.
the
Same
thought
here.
remains the same.
Yes, happy Mother's Day indeed. I know you and I have been called mothers on the show on more than one occasion. So, yes, being called a mother, happy Mother's Day to us, I guess. But do want to mention that if you got a chance this past weekend in all this action with Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, and all the stuff that went on during the course of the weekend, the end of Moon Knight, and also as well Halo continuing and all that good stuff, the debut of Star Trek New Worlds, which I will say I get a chance to see it. It is one of the best Star Trek debut episodes ever, so please go ahead and check it out. That's Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I do want to mention it was Free Comic Book Day this past weekend, and I'll bet you if you did get a chance to go, which unfortunately our comic book man didn't get a chance to go this year, there's still probably a lot of free comic books that you can get at your local comic book store.
Yeah, so our local comic book store they always have like these spinning racks, all the leftover stuff from Free Comic Book Day. They always pop up on there. So I'm definitely gonna try to grab some. What do you got here? So we got Marvel Voices.
Marvel Voices, yes, right here for you. I only got a limited amount. I could only get 6. So I got Bloodborne, a Bloodborne based off the video game.
Oh, nice. I wonder if that
Yes.
means they're getting ready to explore that world a little more.
Maybe, because they got to do everything now in comic books. Sonic the Hedgehog for one of my daughters that's not here she's actually away at Washington D.C. visiting that right now, so got that for her. Spider-Man and Venom. There you
Nice.
go. Always a good thing when you get those two together, because I know Sony wants to eventually make $300 million. Actually $1 billion from it. And then you've got, well, as long as Tom Holland's there, Judgment Day. I've got that as far as that's concerned with Marvel Judgment Day there, and Dark Crisis from the DC. Cannot forget
Yes,
DC.
of
Yes,
course. Yeah.
yes. So some decent stuff there. Free comic books. Obviously, they want to get you to go make sure that you're there year round for all the great action of comic books. But yeah, if you didn't get a chance to go, please go ahead and check out your local comic book store today. You'll be glad you did. I'm sure there's a lot of leftovers. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
I've learned here as like a parent of 3 young ones. just finding time to go to the comic book store. It's not as relaxing a hobby as it used to be. I used to go
Yeah,
in there and be able to browse, not have to tell kids to stop touching things, stop running around. Yes, I will get there. I would love to. I miss comic books.
I just remember. Well, actually, I wasn't planning to go, but my older daughter, who is still here in Las Vegas right now, she asked me to go, and it reminded me of the days where my girls actually were very excited to go and check out each and every year free comic book days. So I was excited to go ahead and relive those memories, and we actually went there and had a good time. So please go ahead and enjoy yourself if you can at the comic book store, and go ahead and pick up some, I'm sure, extra free comic books today at the comic book store of your choice. But we've got a great episode on tap. It is Spoiler Town. Spoilerific. It's a spoilerific episode. Spoilers coming right at you through the entire episode because we're going to be talking a whole bunch of spoilers when it concerns Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Plus, also later on, I have Jeff Sloboda from the MCU's Bleeding Edge. He is actually watching Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness right now. So he's going to go ahead and share his thoughts on the back end of the show. Plus, we are going to go ahead and share our thoughts. I already shared a non-spoilerific review of Doctor Strange on the Friday show. So if you didn't get to see it yet, going to ask you to go ahead and put this on pause, this episode, and you can go ahead and check it out later. You can go ahead and check out my thoughts on the movie itself in a non-spoiler fashion on the Friday show, the PC Multiverse with Melinda Barkhouse Ross. Plus, we're also going to be talking spoilers on Halo Episode 7. Oh my gosh. And it went down to a place that Josh did not want it to go.
Ugh.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about Moon Knight, the series and the final episode. It's great performances, especially by Oscar Isaac. But did the series go where I wanted to go, and did it do everything I needed to do personally as an MCU fan? And what Josh thinks about it as well, his thoughts. He's going to share it. He actually got a chance to see the series, so he's going to share some thoughts, and I'm going to share some thoughts on Moon Knight as well. We may have some video game news on the back end. We'll talk about that on the back of the episode as well. But first, my friend, Doctor. it is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. The latest box office results have it a big win for Marvel in the expected range, where most analysts predicted between 175 to 200 million. It's going to fall right around 185 to 190 million dollars domestically and 400 million dollars worldwide. So it's great news for Marvel, which last year, because of the limited and fractured and pandemic ridden box office results, didn't make quite what they made from any of the films last year. So great news for Marvel as far as on the money side. But it was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And before I share again my thoughts on the movie itself, like I did on Friday in a more detailed now and spoilerific fashion, I want to hear your spoiler thoughts on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
I have a lot of mixed feelings on this one. I haven't heard your initial thoughts. I didn't listen. I haven't listened to the Friday's episode yet, but it seemed like a really weird place to go, and I guess Sam Raimi is the right guy for it. But there's just something that didn't sit well with me having Scarlet Witch as the bad guy. It seems like there's some continuity issues because in the end of WandaVision, she kind of didn't so much as come to terms, but there's a peaceful ending to that show, and she had pushed away the darkness, like she didn't let it get into her. And then all of a sudden we fast forward, yes, I'm searching for America Chavez so I can go to these other dimensions and I will kill all of these monks just to get what I want. It didn't. Marvel has always done a great job of setting their own rules, setting rules for characters and worlds, and this kind of broke those rules. And I guess it just didn't sit well with me.
Well, her obsession for finding her kids, quote unquote, the kids that she conjured up
Yeah.
in WandaVision, that's Billy and Tommy. That's what really drove her obsession, and that's what's really is driving her obsession throughout this film. So I think that's what really has come to play. They're saying that it's given her, it's turned her into madness. It's turned her into, it's given her that madness as far as driving what she's doing throughout the entire film.
Right, but it just didn't make sense with what happened at the end of WandaVision.
Yeah,
Like there was like I said, it wasn't like a super peaceful ending, but there's a realization like, oh, how could I do these things to these people? Blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden she's like insane, out of her mind in this. I don't know. It didn't make sense with how her character was developed.
I will
Outside
say. Oh, I will say it was Sam Raimi camera style. Yeah,
Absolutely. And this is, I was telling my wife too. I was saying this is I see why Scott Derrickson stepped away from this one because this version of Doctor Strange like did not fall anywhere in line with what he had originally created in the first one. So I totally see why he stepped away from this one.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Villain aside, I actually the movie was okay. Like it's not it's not in my top 5, it's not my favorite, but it wasn't, it wasn't really I didn't hate it, and there was a lot of interesting stuff done. Like I love the I guess mixing of sorcery and witchcraft. Like you see these different corners of the MCU coming together. I loved the like America Chavez. I was always like thought to myself when I saw her in comic books, I'm like, that's kind of a stupid power. But then like seeing her come to life on the screen, I'm like, oh, okay, she was pretty cool. Really enjoyed seeing the Illuminati. I did not
Yes.
so much like it was weird that because they didn't really clarify like the Illuminati are dead now. So what does that
In
leave
that universe.
in that universe? But what does that leave for? They didn't specify whether they were all lived in that universe or if they were from.
Well, except for Baron Mordo. Baron Mordo lived. He's just like trapped somewhere down. I guess
Yeah,
where after he fought Doctor Strange for like 2 minutes. In a like a
right.
fisticuffs match for guys who were spellcasters.
Yeah.
So figure
Yeah,
that one out.
that was an interesting one. Anyways, they
Yes.
didn't really like clarify like did these all these characters come from different universes or are they all from the same one? This is just their version of that. Because it would have been really cool to see an incorporation of the X-Men coming into this, and I
Yeah.
loved how they like name dropped like, oh, you're from Universe 616 or whatever, whatever one they're in. Because that was really cool. Really loved John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. Like that was surprisingly well done to me.
For all of 4 minutes into the
All of
movie.
the
Yeah,
performance,
yeah.
yeah. It was overall though, like it was an okay movie. Like I love the zombie Doctor Strange. Like I really love the cape made out of the corpse
Well,
things. You know?
that and Captain Carter make What If worth watching. Remember a year ago, I
Yeah,
was saying, why are we going to need to watch What If? We now have justification on seeing What If and why it takes place between Captain Carter and the zombie Doctor Strange. So that's a
yeah,
good sign right there that you were rewarded for doing that, which we'll talk about when it comes to Moon Knight about being rewarded for watching it. We'll talk about that later on. But the Illuminati, I just want to go ahead, that appeared in the movie, which most of them were killed off. It was almost like a Star Trek reunion as well, and a surprise, I think, for some in one case was, like you said, the internet favorite as far as for getting the role of Reed Richards, hopefully in a Fantastic Four movie, John Krasinski. This may be just this is just, I'm sure it's fan service for the internet, but will it lead to something bigger in a Fantastic Four movie? I'm not so sure. They may cast a different actor, but your
yeah.
thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, they see it's already in production, so I'm wondering if they're. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to get him to play that character. My wife brought up an interesting point too as we walked out of the movie. She said all these characters have doppelgangers in different universes. They're played by the same person. So why is it that the Spider-Men are different? And that
Yeah.
was there's some plot holes there that I'm sure will be addressed at some point. But
Well, Baron
there's
Mordo, in this universe, as far as 838, or I think is it
yeah,
eight? Yeah, it's weird because you get to see him, but you don't see the Mordo that was on a mission to go ahead and destroy all witchcraft in the 616 universe at the end of the first Doctor Strange movie. He existed. There's nowhere, no part of where he was at in this movie. So kind
yeah.
of left that part out of it. I was very disappointed on that end. But the Illuminati, just to let you know, let's let everyone know, was Baron Mordo, Professor X. aka Patrick Stewart from the X-Men movies,
Yeah.
also as well Black Bolt, which is Anson Mount from Star Trek Strange New Worlds from the Inhuman series on ABC that lasted a year, which everybody was thought was awful. So it was great to see that even justified as far as that's
Yeah,
concerned.
well, they incorporated it into
Yeah.
the because I thought that they were trying to get rid of that, like, that was supposed to be a
Swept under the rug. It never
yeah,
happened, but I guess it did happen. Absolutely, it's funny because you had the ending of Star Trek Picard last that season, season two last week, and then you also had the debut of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, and both of those lead actors are in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Should have
yeah,
been wearing some Star Trek T-shirts while they were there. Then they also had Captain Carter, Haley Atwell got that role, reprised that role from the animated What If, and then you had John Krasinski as well. So yeah, that was your Illuminati. I thought that was
they,
pretty cool.
really cut her screen time in half, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, they did with her the way she ended up getting sliced and diced at the end there. So
Yeah,
yeah, just still it was okay of a movie for me. I believe you're right in your assessment. It's okay. It's not going to be anywhere near my top five, but it wasn't a total dud for me. It was an
yeah.
okay movie.
It
I
was
thought.
it
Oh, go
was
ahead.
dark, sorry, it was just very dark, like, I won't be showing my kids this one for a while, but
No,
it was a very dark movie.
not as many jump scares as we were led to believe. I think
Yeah,
because the PG-13 rating prevents it from really doing too much of that. But there was two jump scares, and then that's pretty much it. I think that people will go over. But you're right; it is not for the kids. I don't think that. I think maybe as far early teens, I think can get through it fine. But outside of that, anything younger might not be the greatest thing for them. I would probably advise against it for
yeah,
now. So, or maybe watching it on the TV. Things aren't usually as scary when you watch them on the TV. It just seems
yeah.
that way. But I think overall, it's an okay film. I think it did what it needed to do as far as advancing Doctor Strange. It does have a in the cutscenes, I think when it comes down to it, after everything is said and done, when Doctor Strange goes ahead and finds a way using the Darkhold to go ahead and defeat Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch's evil plans to try and jump dimensions and use the power from America Chavez to do so, he does actually, as what was intimated to him by another Doctor Strange, you once you start reading the Darkhold, it'll never let go of you. And at the very end, you do see him get the power of the Darkhold, whether he likes it or not, with the third eye. But at the very end, can you go ahead and just let us know about the most important, not the Bruce Campbell end credit scene, because that was just a Sam Raimi treat there for you if you're a Sam Raimi fan. But tell us about the final end credit scene that might lead us into what happens into the future of Doctor Strange.
So I forget what the Charlize Theron shows up and says
Yep,
like, "Hey, we need to go fix the multiverse," but she comes out of like
the Dormammu one.
the Dormammu realm, and I forget what her name is, but she eventually married. Her and Doctor Strange eventually get married, and
Clea, it's
yeah,
Clea Strange.
yeah. So they eventually get married, and which I guess is fitting because like he
Well, it's Clea right now, but when she gets married, like you say, Clea Strange.
yeah. So I guess that's kind of fitting because he had talked about like, oh, hey, I would definitely give my life to somebody and have that companionship and all that. And he's talking to Rachel McAdams and all that. But um,
And
yeah,
he realizes his mistakes as far as what went on,
mhm.
with his
So
relationship with her.
yeah, so I think that we're
Because
getting
he loses her in every single universe.
yeah, so we're getting to a place where like he's probably gonna have his end game here soon, like his the end of his trilogy or whatever. But uh, we see when he comes out of the sanctum.
Yes.
I'm sorry, hold on, man. My kid's head is like stuck in the crib thing again.
Okay.
Give me a second.
I will say that again, it's something that you have where, when it comes to the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, you have situations where with Sam Raimi going ahead and directing this, I think like Josh said, Scott Derrickson actually was the original director. he moved on to work with Ethan Hawke from the Moon Knight series on a horror movie. I think it wanted to be even darker was his vision for the film. In fact, MCU's the his thoughts of making it the MCU horror film was his actual intentions. You have the situation where when the at the very end with the end credit scene with Clea, who becomes in the comic books Clea Strange, popping out, already knowing who Doctor Strange is, not caring that he has a third eye that he has gotten from reading the Darkhold. They go into the dimension where Dormammu was at, looking for probably a rematch against Doctor Strange because of already something that he did previously. So I ask you, Josh, before we go ahead and head to the break on what's going on, do you like where Doctor Strange is being set up for the future?
I mean, this definitely changed everything I knew about the character as he exists in the MCU. I would I watch more? Yeah, it's just it's so I don't know, it's almost like jolting though some of the multiverse stuff, and I have a feeling that he's going to be forever tied to the multiverse in the MCU. Now he's got the Eye of Agamotto in his forehead, and
Mhm.
so that's something that I'm curious how that's going to play out. How is that going to work? Because that essentially gives him the ability to control time. So, are we going to see like the time variant showing up in the like they did in Loki? And how are all these things going to be tied together? It seems like his storyline is expanding the MCU in directions that it's never gone before. But at what point is it going to become too big?
At what point? That's correct. At what point will it become too convoluted? And the idea is trying to always cater to a general fan to make sure that they understand and can follow what's going on. I think it's getting to the point where it's dangerously on a thin line
Hmm.
for where MCU fans and people that are comic book fans can easily follow still. But for general fans who don't watch every single Marvel movie, it's going to be harder and harder for them to continue what's going on because that's the thing. You worry about alienating those viewers, and that's the bulk of your audience. It's not the bulk of the audience is not us that already know what's going on in the MCU. The bulk of the audience is just the general person who's seen 5 or 10 or 15 of the 20 some odd Marvel movies. They haven't seen everything. They don't know everything that's going on. So
Yeah.
they just come around every once in a while or pick the ones that they like.
Hmm.
And it's those individuals, it's going to become harder and harder to keep up with what's going on in the MCU.
Absolutely. And it's getting to the point where it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't really cater to casual fans anymore. And you have like having people like the Illuminati show up. If you've never read a comic book or seen any of the other films, like you'd be completely lost there.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate the nod.
Yeah, I do appreciate the nod, Nadine. But what didn't work for you in this film? Anything that really stood out to you? I mean, for me, it was just the fact that I thought that it got convoluted during the middle. I think it got a little bit messy as far as what it was trying to do and what it was trying to go ahead and correlate out there. Just they added in some stuff right around the time of where they jumped universes into the universe with the Illuminati and all that, where they didn't get a chance to go ahead and flesh out the Illuminati as much as I think that they could have because of the fact that they either shortened the runtime a little bit too much or they just didn't put enough in. They just put too much in the middle that left the Illuminati out in the cold, so to speak, because the Illuminati just didn't. Their appearance was just kind of almost underwhelming because they were gone within a matter of minutes.
Yeah, that you're right. They didn't really get a chance to get fleshed out there. They didn't really explore like what happened between Rachel and Doctor Strange. And I know it probably has something to do with him like turning to dust. Um,
Well, the previous Doctor Strange, the Doctor Strange in that
No,
multiverse.
no, no, I'm talking about the Doctor Strange in the mainline MCU, like, they didn't
Oh, the
get
six
really
one
get a
six.
chance to, like, talk about what happened with him. They didn't really and, like, the America Chavez, like, I would've liked to know more about her character, like, tell me, we obviously we see her with that version of Doctor Strange, and we see a little bit about her parents, but we don't really know like where her powers came from. What is it that makes her special besides her ability to travel the multiverse? Was she looking for her parents? We don't know. That was a lot of those were some storylines that I felt need to be explored more. Like I said before, the Wanda being as far down the dark path as she was, that didn't make sense to me. Why did they kill Doctor Strange in the Illuminati's universe? That didn't make sense to me. Um, yeah, like where did the Darkhold come from? That was something. Then they always talk about the Book of Vishanti. Like, what does that do? Like, it got burned up. So, what does that do for people? Who does it help? Like, what was the point of all that? I don't know. There's a lot of loose threads in this, and that's because with the multiverse, they have so many threads out there. I don't think they realize which ones that they had left untied.
Yeah, and again, I told you like from the first film where Chueto Iojofor's character Mordo in that universe, in the 616, the regular MCU universe, at the very end, he went on a mission to go ahead and get rid of witchcraft, which was leading you to think it was going to be a confrontation between him and the MCU's
Yeah,
Doctor Strange. That never happened because he never even showed up in this film. Baron Mordo in this other universe showed up. Yes, they did have a little bit of a fist fight, which was again kind of funny considering that both are supposed to be masters of of the mystic arts.
yeah,
It was just kind of funny, but okay, they're going to have a fist fight. All right. But it was not the same. It didn't give you what it was supposed to represent from the first film. So I'm wondering if he'll show up back in the next Doctor Strange film as the MCU's Mordo. So I don't know. It just that part of it just seemed to be a little bit lacking as well. So I'm again, for me it was okay. It was just the visual art style, seeing Sam Raimi's imprint. I mean, his visual art style is very distinct. You can
yeah.
tell a Sam Raimi movie just by watching it for a few minutes, and it's really distinct. Also, as well, I do want to mention the score, which was just outstanding. Guess who did it, my friend?
Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman, indeed. Oingo Boingo in the house. Yeah, Danny Elfman did a fantastic job, including at the end where there's a music musical battle
Hmm.
between Doctor Strange's throwing literal musical notes at each other and it's sounding off, and that was very clever. That was very unique, and that I enjoyed, and I thought that was really good. But the score by Danny Elfman obviously it's got to be good because he's one of the best out there doing it. But overall, I think it was okay experience for me. I haven't placed it yet on my article that you can find at popculturecosmos.com. I'll probably be updating it this week on where I think it'll land. Have a hard time figuring out where I want to put it. It's going to be somewhere. It's going to be somewhere in 10 to 20, I think, maybe.
Get
I
that.
still think.
It's not one that I'm in a hurry to watch again.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. I'll probably watch it when it goes to Disney Plus, but I'm not going to go out into theaters and watch it unless the rest of my family wants to go ahead and see it. So we'll see what happens there. But we want to hear your thoughts on what's going on with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Please share your thoughts with us. Spoilerific, non spoilerific, whatever you want to do there. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. But the big news, I think, when it comes to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is, my friend, that it earned a lot of money at the box office. Did it I didn't seem like it was going to be for me something that was going to generate 200 plus $1 million or a huge amount. It's not going to be when all is said and done, I think going to end up making us anywhere near what Spider-Man No Way Home is going to make, because I don't think Doctor Strange is the ultimate in box office champions that I think a lot of people will, and everybody's going to go ahead and check out and see. But he is good enough to go ahead and drive a first weekend of May blockbuster like this. And I think that $185 million domestically and $400 million start worldwide, I think that's a great note for Doctor Strange. I think that's about the maximum amount you're going to get from a Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's worth watching. It's definitely worth watching. But Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it's able to keep this momentum going. You know, I had actually heard too that they were supposed to play a trailer for Avatar during Doctor Strange, and it never
I
showed up in
saw
my
it.
theater. Did you?
Yep.
It wasn't in my theater. How was the trailer? Was it cool?
I'm not. You've talked about this. I'm not a big fan of the Avatar movie. I'm just telling you right now. But I am going to go see it because my family is, and it showed you a different side of the planet. Just showed you different side of the Navi. But it was beautiful as always. It was blue as always, because the Navi are blue, and it was really cool. But did it wow you? No, because we've already seen. It just seems like a little bit higher res version of what you saw in 2009.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. A
so
long time ago.
it's really not that. It's not a. It wasn't like huge leaps and bounds. My gosh, I got to go see it type of trailer. Just showed you what they were doing, as far as living, as far as within the planet, how life has evolved on that planet since then. Them working with humans. Then you have this one evil looking Navi that I think is probably like Jake is a human that became a Navi that now looks like he's going to be doing some evil things. Just gave you little hints of that. I
Okay.
hope Stephen Lang's in the film again because Stephen Lang actually was the only saving grace for me in Avatar, and I will say that until the day I die. That was the only reason for me to actually watch the film and watch the film again because I
Yeah.
know we're going to have to watch the film again. It's actually being put out there on theaters again, the original Avatar in September, so look out for that. Unfortunately, it's going to distance itself even more as the number one movie worldwide over Avengers Endgame, which again makes me very sad.
I know. They're cheating though. They're cheaters in this case. Like they're
It resonates more worldwide than Avengers Endgame. I'm sorry, it's ultimately never going to be beaten on that realm because it just resonates. The Navi and Avatar, it just resonates worldwide more than
yeah. But
Avengers Endgame.
James Cameron, he's having such a hard time just letting it go. Just let it go, man.
Well, Avatar 2, 3, 9, 15, 20. He's making all of them. So right now, Avatar 2 is coming out later this year. And we did, well, if you're in the right theater, I guess, you did get a look at it. So if you have thoughts on Avatar, The Way of Water, please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com.
Yeah.
Well, coming up next, it is Jeff Sloboda from the MCU's Bleeding Edge. He's going to drop his knowledge on what he thought of Moon Knight and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Then on the back end, Josh and I are going to be talking Moon Knight, Halo, and maybe a little bit more after that as well. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to close out the show. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos. Want to thank so much Jeff Sloboda for stopping by. Catch his show, The MCU's Bleeding Edge, everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But before we head on out, my friend, wanted to go ahead and talk some Moon Knight. You got a chance to see the series as I did. For me, it was still confusing at times. The plot, the way it drives forward, and the final battles between Ahmed and everything that went on. Once Ahmed was risen up again by Ethan Hawke, I think that it was okay for what it was. But this series is driven by Oscar Isaac and his different personalities. Let's face it, my friend, that's the only reason you really want to watch this show. I am sad that it didn't push anything or didn't relate itself in any way, shape, or form to the MCU. If he never appears again in the series, I had mentioned before that I thought this was an introduction for everybody, for his future in the MCU. If there is no future for him in the MCU, this to me is very disappointing because I thought the What If series would be a series that you didn't need to check out because it had no ties to the MCU. This may ultimately become something that you don't need to watch because it has no ties to the MCU, seemingly right now. I'm hoping that will change, but it's very unclear that there's going to be a season two. It's very unclear if Oscar Isaac is actually going to commit to the role again. It's very unclear if Moon Knight will ever appear again in some form or fashion on a Marvel television or film series.
So Marvel's contracts have always involved like, hey, you need to do so many projects. So
Yes.
I imagine we will see him in a movie at some point.
Well, they've actually shortened that now. They've actually shortened that process. So they won't tie anybody to long-term projects, to long-term contracts now. So
No,
I
and
don't know.
I realize that, but I don't they wouldn't just say like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna make this 6 episode series of Moon Knight just for fun." It's not gonna have any implication or any
I'm hoping
ties
not.
to anything else. Yeah, I'm hoping not too, but you look at he's in Marvel's like Dark Suns. Is it Dark Suns or Black Suns, something like that, where he's like teams up with
Dark
uh
Avengers.
yeah, he teams up with the Iron Man and Blade and the Ebony Knight and all that. So I feel like we're gonna see that come to fruition at some point, especially with if you saw the end credit scene in Eternals, it showed Kit Harington's Ebony Knight, and
Blade.
you hear Blade's voice in the background. So I feel like that's just a matter of time until that happens. As for Oscar Isaac, like people really loved the show. It was all over the place as
Yeah.
far as like quality wise, but people really loved it. And I love the character of Steven. I thought he was funny. I know they're trying to settle like, are we going to be a serious show or funny? I think they kind of blended the things pretty well. The I think they spent too much time in his head, though. In that episode where he died, I thought that that was a little too much. The show seemed to focus more on Mark Spector and Steven. Steve, what's his last name in this one?
Stephen Grant. This is dynamic.
Steven Grant, yeah, as opposed to like showing Moon Knight. That was, I guess, my one big beef for a show titled Moon Knight. Other than that, though, like the last episode had its ups and downs. Like they had kind of like taken it from something that's more meta to like, oh, it's just gonna end this in a brawl. They didn't really. They kind of went the cheap Marvel way out as opposed to like kind of making it a little more interesting. And I guess that's what kind of like it was a mountain for me. I think that the climax was episode 4, and then it slowly started descending.
Did you actually care about the battles between the Egyptian gods Khonshu and Ammit in this? I didn't actually care at all. It didn't add anything to me as far as the series is concerned because ultimately we saw Ammit defeated. He got trapped into the body of Ethan Hawke's character, and now it's a situation where, oh my gosh, he's never going to be, incredibly worried about him being released. But at the very end, in the end credits scene, after we thought his body was released by Khonshu, it turns out Jake Lockley was the ultimate killer all along, not Mark Spector, not Stephen Grant. But anytime he blacked out and couldn't explain it, it was Jake Lockley
Mhm.
who speaks Spanish, or was it that Italian?
Yeah, I don't remember,
Oh,
but
okay, so yeah, he spoke a foreign language, and he actually ended up being the killer doing the dirty deed on Ethan Hawke's character, and thus getting rid of Ahmet if entirely in that limo at the very end at the end credit scene. And then you had Layla during this process actually accepting to be the avatar. Layla, who is Mark Spector's wife, accepting the to be the avatar of Taweret. Taweret is the I guess the goddess, the hippo goddess of the underworld, and she guides people through the underworld. And she
yeah,
became, out of necessity, a winged character avatar for
which was
Taweret.
pretty cool. It was
But
pretty neat.
but it was funny because my daughter was saying, "Okay, well, if you're supposed to be the avatar of a hippo, how do you get wings?"
Yeah, she made that joke though. She was like, well, she had her. I think her necklace had like wings on or something. But she made that joke where she's like, "I have a really cool costume," and I think that that was kind of their excuse for being like, "Oh, let's make it nothing to do with the hippo. We'll just make her like a bird."
But let me ask you this: I mean, if it turns out that 5 years down the line you're still not seeing anything of Moon Knight in the rest of the MCU, what does that say about this series? Because to me, it would be a disappointment. One of the things I've always said on this show is I've loved my time watching the MCU because I feel as even though we've seen some bad stuff in the MCU, I always feel that I've been rewarded for my investment and time in the MCU because of the fact that they've always tied even ever so loosely into each other. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Um. Yeah. I mean, I understand why some properties didn't get as much love as others, but yeah, they have done a good job of like even the stuff that wasn't so good, they reward you for watching it. Moon Knight, and I is such an obscure character that I don't think they would have wasted time or money putting that series together unless there was a greater purpose for Moon Knight's existence.
Okay. But there was a couple of MCU tie-ins that the executive producer nixed, including Camille Nanjiani, I guess a poster or commercial for one of his films, Bollywood films and whatnot, that he did not want in there, and something else that could have tied into the
It
MCU.
was Echo. They're trying to have
Echo too.
Echo be
Yeah.
the love interest, but because they're building off she Echo, because I haven't watched Hawkeye. That is supposed to be Echo, right? The Archer is Echo, the girl.
Well, no, she's not an archer. She's no Echo is an assassin. Is a
Okay.
of the Kingpin. Although she didn't really know at the time as far as what was going on with the Kingpin and how evil he was. And at the very end, she
Yeah.
turns on him, and that obviously sets up the parameter for her series on Disney Plus down the road. But
Okay. All right. Yeah.
watch Hawkeye. It's the best MCU series ever on television.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. It's been a slow catch up for me on all these shows.
All right. Well, Hawkeye is to me the best. I think it was a better structured series, but the reason why this series still gets a thumbs up for me and from everybody else is the brilliant performance of Oscar Isaac. Whether you like or dislike his British accent, the performance, the emotion that it conveys, the reasons and the motivations for the existence of these other characters in his life, like you said, that episode, that very emotional episode on how you find out what's going on in his life, I think that it tells you that it really they can do some good things in the MCU and Marvel, really emotional, impactful stories when they want to, and that's what I like the best about this show.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And this is they did a good job of like offering something that was relatively unknown for the MCU, like a different type of mythology, different type of story. So that just goes to show like they are still trying to cater to people who don't necessarily love all of the superhero business.
Yeah, absolutely. But we want to hear your thoughts out there on Moon Knight season one. Hopefully there'll be a season two. Hopefully there'll be something to extend it into the MCU,
Yeah.
because I'm really right now on the fence on whether or not I feel that I invested my time wisely in watching this series, simply because of the fact that, again, if it doesn't tie itself in the MCU, then why have this series there? I really think it will. Josh thinks it will. Do you think that Moon Knight will eventually tie itself into the MCU? Please let us know. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. Before we head on out, cannot believe of all the weeks you don't watch Halo, this is the week you don't watch, because I would have loved a Josh Peterson rant. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I really wish I would have watched it. I fully intended to. I just got the time escapes me. But go ahead and talk about it because like
You
if
will
I'm
see it though. You
yeah,
better
I
see
will.
it.
I am gonna watch it and I'll like elaborate more on it. But you were mentioning they kind of went down the road. I kept saying I hope they would not.
Well, let me ask you this. You remember I've been talking for weeks about Tokyo Vice, which still has no sign of being approved or not approved or canceled or given a season two. And please, HBO Max, give it a season two. I think it's worth it. But you know how I was talked about all the issue. The only real issue I had was the side story about how it took up 15 to 20 minutes sometimes in an episode and a little bit more in the final episode, that I thought was no more than a distraction. And I really didn't think it gave too much the overall story, and it took away from the interesting part of the story.
Yeah.
Remember how I talked about that?
Hmm.
But it never took over an entire episode. They never devoted an entire episode to it. They actually still kept going on mostly the important parts of it, the investigation, the behind the scenes, the newspaper, behind the scenes, the police, as far as their investigation, the betrayals, the whole nine yards when it comes to the Yakuza and the underground. They still devoted much of the series to it. With Halo, they've been doing all these different things with the Covenant and the backstory. They've been doing a lot of stuff between the UNSC. They've been doing things where they're interacting with each other. But the part of the series you and I have not liked is the development of this. It's I don't even know if you could still call it insurrectionists from the series, from the game series. You really can't. But they're like rebels. They call each other. They say they're the
Yeah,
rebellion, but the rebellion's only one person really, Quan Ha, because everybody else in the rebellion who were working at this water plant got all killed off in the first
mhm.
episode. Yeah, and the ex Spectre, I assume the ex Spartan, Soren 066, they've got stuck on this planet because of certain circumstances. Well, they went out of their way in episode 7 to go ahead and make sure they devote the entire episode to this storyline getting finished up, getting wrapped up. And I will just say that, no, obviously, well, it really is just not the way to go. You're there to watch Master Chief, who doesn't even have his helmet on most of the time. You're there to watch the go ahead. You're there to see the development of how this is going on, and you see this. This is totally different from what you really wanted to see, and to me, that was a disappointment. Yes, they go ahead and they battle the other rebellion group or other insurrectionist group that actually wants to side with the UNSC. And that to me was really kind of another thing that they added in there that isn't part of the video games, which you really don't care about. And Quan Ha's, I guess her arc, her storyline, that again gets finished off in episode 7. I really thought it was for the worst, and I can't believe I sat through it. It was just, oh, it was bad. It's bad.
See, that irritates me. Okay, so in the games, like no one cares about the insurrectionists. You hear stories about them. They briefly allude to them in Halo Reach. In the books, there are almost entire books like dedicated to like ex Spartans living amongst the the insurrectionists and all that. But I this has been my least favorite part of the show is Soren and Quan. I don't know why they had to create a storyline for them. I honestly don't know why they have to have so many episodes with the Master Chief and not like make the Master Chief do the things that we all know and love about the Master Chief. I honestly like I know money, but this show has already been pre-approved for a second season.
Mhm.
Um so I just don't know like what it seems like there's no point. Like it seems like this is the prologue to Halo, and the next season we're gonna actually get Halo. But I also find myself not caring about a lot of the things going on in this show. And like I've said before, especially the Quan and Soren stuff, I just don't care at all. And now I just am like, I will watch the episode, but I'm not excited about it.
I tell you what, you won't be excited about it. Again, this series, which you said the last episode was the best episode of the series, and that's not saying a whole lot because most of the episodes have been underwhelming. But this last week's episode was the best episode of the bunch, and maybe it should get people back invested into Halo. This will take it right out of them. This will suck the life out of you, just like a balloon. I'm just going to tell you
That's
right
what I
now.
want to hear.
Yeah, and next week, I guess they're going to delve more into the Covenant Lady, which is a totally made up character in this series, and her alignment. Is she going to become back to? Is she going to come back to humanity and be a good part of humanity once again, or is she going to still work behind the scenes for the Covenant? And I guess that's supposed to be a thrilling storyline that you're going to go ahead and delve more into. Master Chief is certain that she can become part of humanity again, and we'll see what happens there. I don't know. I just really am not very compelled, but I am going to continue to watch it because I am still committed to video game, TV series, and films to going ahead and support those entities. So I will continue to watch it no matter how bad it gets. But after this week's episode, it got really bad. It wasn't bad acted. That's the thing that hurts me most. Quan Ha and Quan Ha and Soren, actually the actors involved with what they're given actually didn't do that bad acting wise. It's just what they're given is not a whole lot, and it's not really important. It's not really entertaining.
Yeah, yeah, and that was my big beef too. I mean, I'm sure had they tied them into like the discovery of some Forerunner artifact or like their fates are directly linked to like something the Master Chief is doing, that would have been a completely different story. But just giving them their own side story just for the sake of having it, did not bode well with me, or does not bode well with me. And this is one of the things that always made like the original Halo trilogy such a great narrative, because they were able to give you so much backstory without having to go there. You can like talk to a character and they'd be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Or you can read something and find out all this detail about things without actually having to know anything about this character, like in a separate screen, I guess.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts out there on the latest episode of Halo, Episode 7? Did you find it a waste of time like I did? And Josh will find out very soon. And I know I'm probably going to get a text sometime this week telling me, oh, God, Gerald, you were right. Please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Enjoy, Josh. Enjoy. So,
Thank you.
before we head on out, my friend, I wanted to go ahead and say a special thumbs up and a thank you to everything that Retro City Games has done for us, and say congratulations. They are moving their Henderson location here in the next couple months to a larger location in Henderson. So they're growing bigger and stronger, and all props to Retro City Games. Wanted to go ahead and share that. Antonio and Nicole and Doug, wanted to give them a big shout out before we head on out. But speaking of video games, and they're the best place to go for video games here in Las Vegas. But speaking of video games, Trek to Yomi was released last week. Nice little interesting short samurai adventure, very stylistic. I love the black and white feel. It reminds me of samurai movies of old. They said it's pretty shallow when it comes to the gameplay itself, so it's only getting marginally good reviews.
It's a
Any
side
interest in?
scroller, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any interest in playing it at all?
I've read some things and I've seen a little bit of gameplay. Yeah, I'd like to play it. Like right now, I've got so much stacked up in my back catalog. I don't know if I'm gonna like take time to play this one because it's not specifically calling to me, but I do enjoy the art style. Is it something you're thinking about picking up at all?
I guess if it goes on the cheap, but again, finding out it's not that, you know, it's not that beefy of a game with the aesthetic outside the aesthetics. It's really going to be something that maybe I can go ahead and wait until there's a good sale on. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And before we head on out, the big news in the video game world last week was the Embracer Group, a capital investment firm which invests itself into video game properties, and it's got several under its banner already, purchased the Crystal Dynamics Group from Square Enix for I think, a bargain price of $300 million. That's all the Tomb Raider games. That's Deus Ex. That's Legacy of Kain. Some pretty good titles there. Some pretty good IPs. Your thoughts on this before we head on out?
I mean, Square has not. I've said this before. I don't think that Square is the right company to sell your company to. Like we saw the way they treated IO Interactive with the
Yeah.
Hitman trilogy. Now we're seeing the sales of Eidos Montreal and
Crystal Dynamics.
Crystal Dynamics. And this is like right on the heels of the announcement of another Tomb Raider game, which was
Yeah.
surprising to me. Because this is the same company that owns THQ Nordic, and they
Mhm.
have put out a lot of kind of trashy games. So
Which we've
I guess
talked about.
yeah, and I guess my fear here is, without a parent company that is actually someone that makes video games, they or and publishes them, that quality control is not going to be there anymore, and we're going to get like cheaper versions of Tomb Raider. Now, and now I mean, you look at social media, you look at technology. Now is like the perfect time to put out another Deus Ex game. Um, Anyways, all that aside, like Square sold these companies in order to focus more on blockchain games and NFTs, which has really angered a lot of people. And I know that they have just made disgusting amounts of money from Final Fantasy 14, but this like interest in blockchains and NFTs, I think, is going to be to their detriment, because now they've become a company that only puts out so many video games per um I'm sorry, um video games per year, 2 years, or 3 years now.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with it. I agree with you. I am concerned about the future of all those properties because of the fact that the Embracer Group is not a video game centric group in mind. Not that they're not a group that has been known, or a consortium, or a company that is going to be known for something that is, let's say, like when Microsoft buys Activision. or find
Yeah.
that finally goes through, that they're obviously their intent is to go ahead and make good games continuously going forward. I'm not sure that's going to be the same case for the Embracer Group and what it
Yeah.
does for Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, and anything else going forward. So
Yeah.
I'm concerned, to say the least.
Well, we're also seeing a similar situation here with Ubisoft, right? We have a company that's looking to acquire them that is not necessarily a gaming company.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's, I find interesting. We have these companies who aren't, well, I guess Embracer Group does focus on gaming, but they're not like Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and keep you updated right there at the Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source on Facebook, but also here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. What are your thoughts out there on the Embracer Group purchasing Crystal Dynamics? Please let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Big shout out to Diane who gave us a message there on the chat. Thank you so much for watching and listening to everybody who has done so. But any last thoughts before we head on out?
Not that I can think of. I know Bethesda and Microsoft announced a conference coming up here, so I'm hoping we'll hear something from Sony. There just needs to be more game releases coming out in the fall, but we'll have to see what happens with that. But that's it. I mean, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about later.
Absolutely, indeed. But we do thank you always for watching us, listening to us, and catching us wherever you can, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great